The Anti-Fascist Council for the National Liberation of Yugoslavia, known more commonly by its Yugoslav abbreviation AVNOJ, was the political umbrella organization for the National Liberation Councils of the Yugoslav resistance against the Axis occupation during World War II. It eventually became the Yugoslav Provisional Wartime Deliberative Body. It was established on November 26, 1942 to administer terrorities under the control of the Partisans. First session of the AVNOJ. After the Yugoslavian army capitulated on April 17, 1941, Yugoslavia was distributed between Germany, Italy, Bulgaria, Hungary and the newly formed puppet states, Independent State of Croatia, Independent State of Montenegro, Albanian Kingdom and Nedic Serbia. Opposition to these occupation regimes caused the formation of resistance movements resulting in the Communist Party of Yugoslavia, then only active in the underground but fast gaining popularity, assuming the role of leading the forces in the Yugoslavian resistance. The CPY as an organization comprised people from, and drew support from, the whole of Yugoslavia. As such, it represented a single Yugoslav identity. On November 26, 1942, the partisan leaders of Yugoslavia convened the first AVNOJ meeting at Bivak, in a liberated pocket called the Bivak Republic in the northwest of Bosnia, in the hope of gaining political legitimacy. The Slovene delegation could not attend due to intense fighting, but it fully approved the federal build-up of the new Yugoslavia, comprising a committee of both the communist and non-communist partisan representatives. Under Josip Broz Tito, AVNOJ proclaimed support for democracy, the rights of ethnic minorities, the inviolability of private property, and freedom of individual economic initiative for the different groups. In January 1943, Germany mounted a fourth large-scale anti-partisan offensive to strengthen its control of Yugoslavia by destroying the central command of the partisan movement, the Central Committee of the CPY, and the primary partisan hospital. The partisans, outnumbered and engaged in major battles with the Chetnik formations of Colonel Draza Mihailovic, Ustashar militias and the combined German and Italian regular forces, were steadily forced into retreat until an elaborate deception plan allowed the partisans to escape the pursuers. Despite the tactical defeat and the loss of men and equipment, the partisan central command remained intact and the hospital safe, which, over time, enabled the continuation of further operations against the enemy. All the major strategic military offensives of the Axis and their collaborators were ultimately thwarted. In May of the same year, German, Italian, Bulgarian and Croatian troops launched a fifth concerted offensive against the partisans in southeastern Bosnia, near the Suceska River. Again, faced by superior enemy numbers and potential encirclement, the partisans escaped defeat, but not without cost. However, the fact that after the successful breakout the partisans were still able to mount major counter-offensives proved to be a turning point in the battle for control of Yugoslavia. When Italy surrendered in September, the partisans were further aided by captured Italian armor, control of additional coastal territory, and the shipment of supplies from the Allies in Italy. Second session of the AVNOJ. We are convinced that our allies will not misunderstand this historic step taken by our people, but rather that they will do everything to give our people the moral and material help and backing, and this through the representatives elected by the people themselves in their own country. Quote, in its second AVNOJ conference in the Bosnian town of Jajce, from November 29 to November 30, 1943, Tito declared AVNOJ to be the superior executive authority. The decisions and the resolutions of the Second AVNOJ Conference were to create a federal Yugoslavia, based on the right of self-determination of nations, in which the southern Slavic peoples who would live in 6 constituent republics with equal rights, to stress that even during the War of National Liberation there had been established anti-fascist councils of the National Liberation of Yugoslavia, lands for Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sandak, Macedonia, and Montenegro, and the Bay of Kota as the organizations of the People's Administration of the land, to elect the National Committee of the Liberation of Yugoslavia, based in Jajce, to act as the temporary government, to name Tito Marshal of Yugoslavia and Prime Minister, to revoke the Yugoslavian government in exile, and to deny King Peter II Karađorđevic's return to the country, until a popular referendum had been held on the status of the monarchy. Note: on the 21st of November 1943, the AVNOJ decided on the following provisions on the deprivation of civil rights in the years to come. This formed the legal basis for the treatment of the Danube Swabians, whom they called Germans in Yugoslavia, including the creation of many labor and concentration camps. All persons of German nationality living in Yugoslavia automatically lose the Yugoslavian citizenship as well as all civil rights. The entire movable and immovable possessions of all persons of German nationality are confiscated by the state and henceforth its property. Persons of German nationality are neither allowed to claim or exercise any rights, nor to use courts or other institutions for their personal or legal protection. No existing text of these resolutions remains available to historians. See also AVNOJ Beschluss. Stalin, the Soviet leader, was enraged when he found out that he was not being informed of the November meeting, and reportedly barred Tito from declaring AVNOJ as a provisional government. The Western Allies, however, were not alarmed, because they knew that the Partisans were the only Yugoslav resistance group actively fighting the Germans. In December 1943, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin decided to support the Partisans. The United Kingdom joined a month later, and stopped supplying the Chetniks. The first Soviet mission arrived at Partisan headquarters shortly thereafter. The United States kept a military mission with Mihailovich to encourage continued Chetnik aid for downed American flyers. In May 1944, German airborne forces attacked Tito's headquarters in Drvar, nearly capturing him. Tito fled to Italy and established a new headquarters on the Adriatic island of Vis. After throwing its full support to the Partisans, Britain worked to reconcile Tito and Peter. At Britain's urging, Peter agreed to remain outside Yugoslavia, and in September summoned all Yugoslavs to back the Partisans. Resolutions from November 1944. The formulation of the resolutions at Jajce were revised and affirmed on the 21st of November 1944 in Belgrade. The city had been taken on the 20th of October by the Red Army and the Partisans under the leadership of Josip Broz Tito. One of the resolutions dealt with the decree about the transition of hostile goods to be turned into state property, about the public administration of the property of absent persons and seizure of the property alienated by force from the occupying powers. After this, all possessions of the German Reich and its citizens on the territory of Yugoslavia, as well as all possessions of persons of German nationality, except those Germans who fought as members of the National Liberation Army and the partisan units of Yugoslavia, who are citizens of neutral states, who did not behave hostilely during the occupation, should become the property of the new Yugoslav state. Besides this, all possessions of the war criminals and their accomplices, without consideration for the nationality and the fortune of each person who was condemned, is seized by judge judgment of the civilian and military courts to become the possession of the state. On 6 February 1945, the decree of 21 November 1944 was transferred to the legislation of the Republic of Yugoslavia and incorporated into the confiscation law of 9 June 1945 and also into the law for agrarian reform of 23 August 1945. The law dealing with the voting lists of 10 August 1945 specified that members of the military formations of the occupiers and the native accomplices, and those who continuously and actively fought against the Liberation Army of Yugoslavia and or against the Royal Yugoslav Army or against the armies of the Confederates of Yugoslavia, are all denied the active right to vote. Moreover, the existence of these resolutions are confirmed in the establishment status of the autonomous area of Vojvodina, which was created by decree of the Presidency of the Serbian Representative Government, where a guarantee was made in Article 4 to all nationalities the full equal rights as a citizen of Serbia with exception of the German nationality, that due to the decision of the AVNOJ of 21 November 1944 the civic rights were taken away. The AVNOJ resolutions became law on 1 December 1945, explains Leon Gershkovich and E. Zellweger. As a result, the flight and expulsion of the Danube Swabians began as part of the flight and expulsion of Germans, and more than 170,000 Yugoslavian Danube Swabians were declared to be Germans and deported into many labor and concentration camps in Yugoslavia.